Hello, welcome back. Tonight I will talk about a very special book of mine, a grimoire, or if you want to say, well, the grimoire is connected a little to the dark side or darker side. It is something more magnetic, mysterious, potent, or it has some type of power to it as well. So the grimoire carries something more than a book. And when we talk about Asmodeus, of course, it is an interesting discussion always. It's always important or very good to speak about Asmodeus or speak with others, or you can meditate, or I can meditate on my own thematic as well, on my book or on Asmodeus, and say, well, there are many things that I would like still to talk about. Even if the book has been written and already published, but the same, I still continue to work on the thematic as well for me and for others. So the book is published. It is there is a link in the description box below if you want to buy it, and there is a link to the playlist from the beginning, the playlist of Asmodeus. And tonight I would like to speak about some of his elements that I'm able to imagine also. Well, my creativity has to do a lot with my own imagination, and I quite like to follow that imagination that I have, or the type of intuition that I have. So I think Asmodeus wants to say that it is good to listen to your own instinct and to listen to your own inner voice, that inner dialogue, or your inner self, no? Say, well, that it is, and so, well, it's like making peace with the inner self, or like saying to your inner self, like you're smiling to you and you know your own beauty and power, no? Say, well, that inner self is very important, and that what Asmodeus in general works on. So, well, if we look at him, how he appears, we see that beautiful inner self that he carries, no? So he is always a very good example. Asmodeus does not only teach, he is example of. So he is exactly that, what he teaches us as well. So he is a very true teacher. There's nothing fake or untruth about Asmodeus. It is always about the truth. So they say it is true that the inner self should be strong, and you should feel that inside you always, no? So, well, the inner self, of course, carries a lot of meaning as well, no? It carries your inner dialogue, the way you see, or the way I see myself. It does carry that, in a way, a persona, no? I say, well, there is a layer that we hide, and it is more our inner self, and that we share rarely or only with some people. There is always a question of change as well, too, no? But the inner self has a beautiful poetry. The inner self is that one who holds the light and gives you the answers that you want to have. That's why you should always trust yourself mostly, and you know what's best for you. That's always the great lesson to follow, and it is a correct lesson. You cannot go wrong doing this. Always follow your own steps. Always follow your own advice, you know. That inner self knows. You know that your inner self knows. That is the element of that inner self in a beautiful way, no? That you say, well, I do trust my inner self. I do trust myself. I accept my errors or mistakes, or I accept anything that push me away from that point where I see myself as my inner self in a very positive light, in a strong light, in a beautiful light, in the way I want to show it. It is a personal choice. That's how it should be. And say, well, that's the one beauty of you being who you are, no? Say, well, Asmodeus speaks about very much about will and power and desire. To say, well, how can you know what you want if you don't know who you are or how you see yourself, no? From what point are you starting? It's like if it's a journey, the question is which direction, what origin, where you want to go. That's what Asmodeus asks, and say, well, the inner self has to already know, and you have to trust that the inner self knows, and you follow that. And the grimoire say, well, I don't write my books to teach necessarily, because my books are not teaching necessarily books, of course not. They are literally works. They say, well, it is the quality of a novel or a book or comedy or anything that I write, different type of books. They say, well, the grimoires, as I've said, are in a specific genre that I write. I have written different ones, almost 10 grimoires, I think, and I'm still working on others. So the grimoires is a big thematic in my own work. And then I did write many other novels and saga and poetry and short stories and but it's always the element of the storytelling for me. For me, my pleasure is not to create a book and say, well, I just put facts together. No, it is a literally work. It is a book to be enjoyed at that level. That's how I created it. And of course, I do invite hopefully as many readers as possible, that they have interest in my books, and they will decide one day to buy a book of mine and read it and say, well, it is an interesting choice. Say, I have written already many books, so there is an interesting choice even in that list. There is a list with my books too in the link description box, and there you see some of my titles. I chose some important ones, but the grimoires are a big part of that. It is something that I enjoy to write mostly, to be honest. And when I start to write on the subject, then I'm so thrilled that I don't stop. I'm so passionate about it when I write it. And the Grimoire of Asmodeus does carry, say, a specific type of knowledge, of interest, that one is invited to discover. Of course, there are many other books on Asmodeus or different thematics. I'm sure they're all very beautiful, and say you cannot be disappointed in any of those choices, because Asmodeus is always a very interesting character. It is never boring. It's impossible. Asmodeus carries many facets and many lights and many different aspects of his being. He even transcended that one self idea, because the way he sees himself, it is correctly so as well, no? So Asmodeus does have a specific description in my book, the way I saw him, the way I wanted to create him, or that inspiration that came to me as well as a writer. I do work on that inspiration that I receive, and I try to create it in a specific form in a book. In the other recordings about Asmodeus, they are all very nice, and I do invite you to listen. They are very beautiful, and I talk about different aspects or description of the name of Asmodeus, his appearance, the different colors, all the nuances that I could find, or what type of animals are connected to him, or what type of personality he might have, or I was like meditating on that those elements of him, trying to get to know him closer, and say, well, closer than even when I wrote the book, because when I wrote the book, my subject is in a way at a distance from me, because I'm still trying to learn from him, no? So I'm very separated from that person or character, because I'm the writer, so I write, no? So there's this element of the certain distance, or it's like the feeling changes, no? The moment I publish the book, the moment I read it or I speak about it, I feel more close to my book as well, or to my character. It transfers something, no? It changes how I connect with my book as well. And the Grimoire of Asmodeus is very beautiful. It's a beautiful book, beautiful, this purple color where we can see Asmodeus. Then I included his name, with the beautiful decoration. I chose the color purple. It is the color of Asmodeus, color purple. And on the cover there's a description about the book, or about the subject of the book, and then inside you have a beautiful written grimoire of Asmodeus that goes around 200 pages, and it tells the story of Asmodeus, part of it, or some interesting aspects that I worked on. As I've said, I do invite you to listen to the other playlist. I say, well, this is a continuation from that point, because tonight I would like to speak about something else, about Asmodeus, to take us a little further in the discussion as well. So well, there is the element of supernatural when it comes to Asmodeus. There is the element of a god that is very far away, at the same time very connected to earth. There's a lot of contradictory elements in that beauty of the contrast. At the same time, there's a lot of metaphors, a lot of similarities in the way Asmodeus describes himself. And it is very elegant, it's very fine, very powerful. It creates a certain feeling. There is like a wave in the book. You feel some type of maybe electricity or something. There is a certain type of suspense. I don't know. It's the way Asmodeus talks from the verses, the lyrics. It is a grimoire. It is written in hymn form, so it moves from the beginning, with different lines, like the Greek style, in a hymn, from the beginning to end without stop. It goes and tells, it tells the story, or the Grimoire of Asmodeus, the one I have written. When I wrote it, I was very focused on the work, and then in the end, I was very curious to read and to see how it looks. I just think it's a great book to have at home and have for yourself and in your collection. As I've said, maybe in future I will do different covers, and this will be a first edition, no? So even books have their own history that connects them to the future. So it is a beautiful journey, as well as for me, as well as for my books. And I do hope they will reach you and you'll enjoy. So my books I do create with that wish, of course, that others do enjoy and like my books or love my books, depending. No one is forced, but it will give me pleasure, that's for sure. And Asmodeus definitely is a grimoire that one, like from all my books, I will definitely choose this one to recommend people who are interested to read my first book that I have written. To start with one, it will be this one. I will recommend this one. Thank you so much for listening. As I've said, you can check the other recordings. I have other books or other characters from my books that I talk about, different playlists made for them, for you to listen. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, bye.